Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shop Talk. This is the May 2024 edition, and we are going to be talking all about websites and hosting a website on Shopify. And so we're going to have Kelsey from the Antique Her hopping on. I do apologize. I was a few minutes late in getting on. My toddler, I don't have a sitter today, so it's a bit of trying to very patiently encourage them to go to bed. Okay, I am going to see if I can invite Kelsey on here. Okay, Nicole is not able to be with us, so we will miss her so much. But thankfully we do have Kelsey on. Okay, Kelsey, I invited you.
Hi.
Hello. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you live.
Good to see you.
This is great. Thanks for being patient. Like I said, it's just running a little behind. I'm going to scoot this up. So why don't we just go ahead and get started? Will you introduce us and tell us who you are, where you live, and how in the world you got into this crazy world of selling vintage?
For sure. I don't do a lot of live, so if I'm not loud enough or something, let me know.
Yeah.
But I'm Kelsey. I am the antiquer on Instagram and in my website and YouTube and all the things. I've been selling vintage or antiques for as long as I can remember because I started when I was like 15 under the table working in a local shop. Like,
And you mean
kind of selling on the side, you know?
you mean like not physically under the table. You mean like
No,
metaphorically.
right. Like cash, you know. But it was selling antiques. And the guy that I worked for, he would go to like the markets and then bring it all back and I would sell them in the store. And I just remember thinking like, who would want this old stuff? Like this is like garbage. This antique dough bowl, like why is it? And now I'm obsessed, you know? That's how that's how it goes, right? But ever since that, like I've just grown in appreciation and I started thinking like how can I leave the corporate world and be with my kids more?
Mhm.
And this allowed me that opportunity. So
Oh, wow. Okay. So when did you take that leap of leaving the corporate world and what has that looked like as far as what your vintage business has looked like and of course leading up to when you started your website?
yeah, I moved back home technically, kind of like we moved back to the area in Illinois from Minneapolis in 2020 because of COVID and everything. We just felt that pressure to kind of be by family and how important that was with our kids,
Mm-hmm.
especially. I have two little boys. So we did that, and then I also left my job at the same time and just went full time into the antique world. So it's been about 4 years officially, but I've always been an entrepreneur, like selling aprons on the side. I've had a photography, business. I've had all the businesses, and they've all pretty much had websites. So
Okay.
I'm no
Oh, this is
stranger to it. Yeah.
yeah. So that was like a natural thing. So did you have the website from pretty much the moment that you started selling?
Pretty much. It wasn't too long after. I did start originally on Etsy, and I love Etsy. I have all the good things to say about it,
Mm-hmm.
so we can get to that. But I was
We
like, I
will.
want a website just because it's the natural progression, right? Of like
Yes.
wanting to have a little bit more control. And I think Etsy is going to be around, but what if they don't, right? Like, what if something happens and they
Mm-hmm.
disappear tomorrow? Like, I don't want that to happen, but I have to protect my investment and time as well.
Yeah.
And that was a website naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where kind of moved over to that. But I was comfortable with it. Like I said, I had done a few in the past, so kind of felt like a natural movement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so before we dive into like the nitty gritty of Shopify, I was curious because there are a lot of people that want to do this full time or like me are doing it full time and then struggling with managing building your own structure as a business and you have a family on the side and like so what do your daily and weekly routines and rhythms look like for your shop? Like, are
Yeah.
you listing every day or do you weekly drops or, what does that look like for you?
I've tried a lot of different things, and I have a husband who's um, extremely operational and very good with like, this is what you do, and that's what he like does for a living. So it's tough because he'll be like, "What are your daily routines?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But I do, I feel like the creative side of me needs some flexibility. And I think a lot of us who are in this vintage world or you do some
Mhm.
kind of handmade goods, you're a creative person and you are finding this world because you have that desire to maybe break away from the structure that's always there. So
Mhm.
I have found for me that I do a little bit of pretty much all of it every day. So in the morning, I pack the orders that sold in the last day or 2 days, and I
Mhm.
get those ready to go. And then I take them out with me and I go to the post office. I do a little shopping, whether that's at an antique mall or garage sales, estate sales, like whatever it is that I'm kind of looking at,
Mhm.
you get to know your loop kind of, right? I'm going to make sure I hit up these spots
Yeah.
and I do it on rotation so that you're not wasting your time. And then, depending on what season it is, I live in Illinois, so garage sales aren't always a thing.
Yeah.
But I'll go out and do some of that. I usually try to be home by about 12 to 12:30 so I can start taking photos of
Mhm.
anything that I bought or that I have sitting to go on the site. I'll take photos for an hour or two. I try to always have, like, I use this backdrop a lot, something where I can just kind of go and take the photos, get them ready really quick, and then I will start listing then from 1:30 or so to 2:30, and then my kids get home, and that's always pandemonium. And
And you're just like, just we're done. Work's done for the day.
yeah, and I think I love what I do, so I don't mind then when there are those calm moments, or I'm sitting in a car for an hour waiting for someone between
Hmm.
practices. I'm working on what else can I post to Instagram? How else can I share content from my website? Take those photos. They're so easy to just download onto your phone, and then you have the high quality photo and you can share it onto Instagram,
Yes.
right?
I have noticed that you are really good at always posting links back to your website, and that's something I need to be better at because especially having our own website, and we can actually look at that more down on our outline. We talk about marketing and driving traffic and stuff, but like every day I see you're like posting gorgeous pictures and like this is where you can buy it. And I think that that's something that is a really important routine when you have your own website is just you create all this content and then you use it and you just rinse and repeat and you just keep sharing
Yeah.
it if you can.
Yeah. And it's, I really feel like this business, if you're wanting to make it a business for yourself, like you get out of it what you put into it, right? So, like,
Yes.
the effort that I put out there is going to drive hopefully the traffic to my site. So,
Yes.
you never know like what's gonna intrigue someone, and
Yeah.
it's like, hey, this glass, I just listed a bunch of them, and someone's like, I've been looking for that. I had them when
Oh,
I was a child, and that's great. Like, but they're not gonna maybe go to your site without that prompt. So,
yes. We have to make it really, really easy for people to discover what they have. And just as a side, as far as for me, had a little bit of a different journey where I started in 2021. I started selling on Instagram, and then I realized that to kind of scale up, there was kind of a cap because on Instagram, when I'm sending random Venmo and PayPal invoices and tracking everything manually, I was like, it's just people think that I'm really organized and really good with numbers. And I'm like, no, it's because I am so incredibly bad with details and numbers. Like, I am looking for the systems that can help me. This is why I married an engineer
Yeah.
subconsciously.
Yes, exactly. That's why I have an organizational, wizard husband.
Yeah. We had this I had a discussion with some friends of mine who are also sellers, and they're like, oh yeah, we do all our bookkeeping on a spreadsheet because we're afraid, we like to see the numbers, we are afraid of glitches happening, like we want to make sure that no one else is, like nothing is missing. I'm like, oh, if I did that, it for sure would be messed up. Like that is the surefire way that something would go terribly wrong. Like I should not be in charge of that information. Anyway, so then started on Etsy, and then I was looking at my traffic because my Instagram has consistently grown, especially in the past 6 months. And this was when I had probably I don't really know, maybe 5,000 followers on Instagram. And I realized that 25% of my traffic, my Etsy traffic, came from my Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I basically crunched the numbers and was like, well, that's at the point, if I redirect that 25% traffic, assuming that that's leading to actual revenue, if I redirect that and pay for a website, then any additional traffic I get from my website, as I redirect that from Etsy, I'm just going to save money on fees.
Yeah.
And it was really like a pure, besides all the things that you're saying, as far as like owning your own space, having your brand, having, basically online property that's your own. It was really the numbers of like, well, this just makes sense. Like, to send these people to my own website rather than another platform. I kind of think of it as like the difference between owning my own brick and mortar store and having a booth in someone else's mall. Like there's benefits to both, and it just depends, what you want. So
definitely.
Yeah. So when you started doing your website, because we got this question a lot, was like, why Shopify? What makes Shopify better than, Etsy, Instagram, WooCommerce, Wix, or all these other options? Like, because we're both, again, this is a great conversation because we are both on Shopify.
Yeah. I was looking into that a little bit because I knew that was some of the questions that we were receiving. And I don't feel like there's a lot of difference between Wix and Shopify. I will tell you, I had a Wix photography website, so that I did have some past experience with. And I would say that one was extremely user-friendly, very user-friendly. Okay, so what I did compare though were some of the things that they had caps on, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I know Wix has some space cap, so like 100 gigabytes or 50 gigabytes space with their lowest cost plan. So just to be clear, Shopify has a basic plan for, I think it's $29 a month is like their basic fee.
Yes.
And that's what I have. I have the basic one. It's great for solo people like us. Yep. If you don't have like a bunch of people working for you or needing access to it, the basic could be enough for you as well. But that was something I looked at. I have really high quality, not like they're pretty, but like the image is a big size. Yeah. So if you take camera photos, even with our iPhones now, they've gotten so big that you need that space, right? And in all the different ways. So I know I was going to, have a lot of products, and space would maybe be an issue. So that was a big factor. And then the calculation on taxes, they have a limit on that. So I think you had to pay $36 a month on Wix as their basic to have tax calculated for you. So that was more, it just made sense to me to go with Shopify for those two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like it's a little bit more customizable in the ways that I wanted to use it.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like when I started looking into the different websites, there was never, maybe it was because I had been subconsciously researching it. I'd see stuff about Shopify and kind of just file it away in my brain for later on. But Shopify really is built for e-commerce. It is built for selling. It's built for selling stuff. Whereas Wix, WooCommerce, some of these other sites are not built for that. The problem with us vintage dealers is we're not selling like a set of 10, like most e-commerce sites.
Yeah.
You're going to sell like, oh, you have 10 t-shirt designs and you sell the same product over and over and over again.
Right.
I mean, my SKU numbers are in the 3,000s. Like I have well over 1,000, maybe a couple thousand products archived on my website, let alone what's live.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to make sure that I could cross post to Etsy and do different automate a few things like that. And some of the questions people asked about, like, what's the difference between Shopify and Square? As far as I know, I think with Square, you can set up a very, very, very basic landing page. And Square is great for invoicing. If you do Instagram sales, you can invoice. People can use credit cards, and you can use it for in-person sales. But you don't have the capacity to really build out an entire website. And that's what we both have done with Shopify, is really to do that. Now, a lot of, if you go to, and I've experienced this because I've talked to different people who've walked through this process. If you talk to a lot of web designers, if you think I'm going to hire someone to do a web design for me, a lot of them want to do it on WordPress or WooCommerce or Wix, like some of these different ones, because they can get in and encode the website. Now, I'm the same as you. This is the third website that I've built. My previous two websites were on Squarespace, and I absolutely adore Squarespace. Oh my gosh, right? Have you ever used Squarespace?
I feel like I did the original like website that I opened, but it was rough because I was just like really playing, in spare time, but it's easy. It was easy to use.
Yeah. But it's really, there's a cap on your store of like 100 products or something like that. And it's built more for coaches, online, like digital products, a restaurant landing page, that kind of thing. But you don't need a website designer for Squarespace. It's very drag and drop. It's very like graphic designer friendly. It's gorgeous. But and with Shopify, it is not easy to necessarily customize your HTML code or do some back-end customization, because I've had to go in and do a few things to do that. And it is not, basically anytime, I don't know, Shopify kind of says just hire a professional to this or that. And because I have a background and I've like coded stuff, I can figure it out. But yeah, it's not very easy. But the problem is, then once the designer gets everything built out on these other platforms, it's really hard for the business owner to go in and kind of navigate it themselves. Whereas on Shopify, once you have stuff set up, I feel like once it's set up and designed and you have it kind of set how you want to go, it's just so easy to list things.
Yeah. And I would say the basic website is fairly easy if you don't have if you're afraid of that. I know a lot of people are afraid of that. Like, I cannot code.
You don't have to code for Shopify.
Yeah. And you just need to, buy a domain and do some of those things, which I'm not sure if we're talking about that later, but it's a simple point your domain to your Shopify store, and this is like copy and paste this into the code. So it was fairly easy. It is a little bit more complicated, I would say, than Wix was originally, but not by much.
Yeah. And so I mean, from the very beginning, when you want your own website, the domain is the thriftywhitney.com, theantiquer.com. It's whatever you want your name.
Oh,
And even, this is my little trick, if you kind of think like, I might want a website, but I'm not sure, maybe in 6 months, you can buy the domain name for like $20 a year on GoDaddy or whatever. I actually did that. I actually did that like 6 months before I started my website because I wanted to make sure that Thrifty Whitney would be there.
yeah.
Because there was,
I always
yeah.
joke I'm a serial domain buyer because I love to like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that someday, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I own all these domains
Yeah.
for $12 a
I know.
year and who knows? But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely go by your
Mm-hmm.
name if you wanna, if you are even
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it,
Yeah.
try it.
Okay. One thing I forgot to mention, because Nicole is not in the live with me as a moderator, if you guys, when you have questions, this is a huge help because I am seeing a few questions pop up. I'm not going to be able to stop and write them down. Do you see down at the very bottom, there's a little speech bubble with a question mark inside of it. If you guys could put your questions, do you see that, Kelsey? Can you point to it?
Let's see.
Yeah, you might not have it actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes the guest doesn't.
So,
It's right next to the comment bar. If you guys could put your questions in there, then we will go through them at the end, and that way we won't miss it because your question might be answered later in the live as we get further into the outline. And I just want to make sure, like I said, that yeah, that I'm not missing them, but I won't be able to write them down if they're in the comment stream. So put them in the question box. Thank you. Okay, so we've got our domain name. We've got, we're not going to get too hard into the like how do you design a website because it's just impossible to talk through. You just got to do it. I would suggest going through, like, go to my website, go to her website, actually look and see, like, what does the landing page look like? What does the product page look like? What kind of things do I want to show up at the bottom, at the top, the announcement, all that stuff. And if you can't figure out how to get that on there, just you can always send me a DM and ask, and I can send you some screenshots or kind of direct you and like, hey, do this tutorial or whatnot. Because sometimes it's just hard to even know what to, like, how to describe something. Like,
yeah.
I don't even know what this is called. Yeah. And then you, like, I mean, as far as paying a designer, I mean, generally when you're setting up the website, I mean, a designer is generally going to be at least $1,000, like $1,000 to $3,000. That's how much I would charge if I was setting up a website because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And if you're at a point in your business where you're like, I don't have time, I want it done right, and I want it done quickly, and you have that cash reserve set aside, like, do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, everything you see on mine, and it sounds like yours, has not been a professional doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's ways around that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you have the extra money, and
Mm-hmm.
especially too, I think it'd be easier if you only had a few products, like if you always make the same handmade things, or
Yeah.
like you said, a t-shirt like kind of company or something, it's a lot easier. But when you're going to go in and make changes all the time and add new collections and add new things, it's nice just to learn how to do it so you can manage it all yourself.
Yes. That's another thing. That's a big reason why I did it myself, was like, I have to know how this works. So and then also just a note, we in episode 6 we talked about branding. And branding, I think, is super important to have nailed down, figuring out who you are as a business and how to express that on your website. Because when it comes to design, there are certain things like color schemes, fonts, and your logo that you really need to have in place to have a website that looks cohesive and matches your online presence everywhere else. So that we had Marcella from the Brass Antics on to talk about branding because that's what she does for her regular job. So if you look at on YouTube, you can find episode 6 and we talk about that some more. So yeah. Okay. Now we kind of get into the nitty gritty of, I will answer this because I did have someone had a question about payment. I mean, I'll just address this here. I don't think we have a section actually on finances, but I'm sure we'll talk about it. The nice thing about Shopify versus like other platforms, like is that you can take credit card and PayPal. I even saw Venmo pop up as an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah.
I mean, and you, and I didn't even really mention this. I have an antique booth. I have done a few in-person markets. I sell on Etsy. I have my website. I do Instagram live sales. Shopify is like the centralized hub for all of those branches.
Right.
All of those branches of business that I run. Everything gets run through Shopify. It is like central station because of how I've set it up. My inventory for my booth is all kept within Shopify. So I can run reports and see what inventory I have at the booth, or what has sold at the booth. So that's another big reason as your business grows. Really, before your business grows big, you need to set up systems that can scale up.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to manage all, everything manually, it can get really difficult. So,
Yeah.
but yes, and Shopify also has payment plans built in that you don't have to manage, that Shopify manages for you, and that's awesome, especially when you're selling. Like I see payment plans come through for quilts and some of the bigger pieces or orders that I get too.
Yeah, and as the seller, you don't have to do anything with that, so
Mm-hmm.
it's really streamlined and easy. I
Yes.
agree. Like inventory across Etsy and Shopify is it's just the best because you can list on both, sell on both, and it'll detract from either system so that it won't sell twice.
Yeah, we'll talk more about cross posting a little bit later, but so what is your process, for actually listing items on Shopify? Because when you open the product page for listing things, it can be a little overwhelming because there's a lot of fields there to fill out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just gonna bring it up so I could walk through one.
And are you using SKU numbers, the SKU?
I don't really. I should.
Oh, hold on. Oh, now this is interesting because how in the world do you cross post? We cross post differently to Etsy, so this will be an interesting conversation.
Yes.
But okay, so what fields are you filling out then on?
Okay, so I wish we could share this screen here, but
I know, I know.
it goes with just a normal title. Same with Etsy if you're familiar. I usually just do a generic kind of title there. Obviously, description.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little over the top in my description. I would encourage any new seller or anyone who wanted to do it. I almost I want to talk you out of it while hoping you want it. I want to tell you how, if there's a single flaw, I would never want you to be unhappy with your product. So I'm going to be like, okay, do you see this? This is a little discoloration, so my description is sometimes lengthy.
Yeah.
And then I always have my blurb of reach out to me if you need anything.
Mm-hmm.
Stating what I believe vintage is. I've seen a lot of debates about, what that is in antique, and I'll say this is what I believe.
Yes.
So you are fully aware. And then it has the spot for photos, which is nice. With Etsy, only allows you 10 photos still, right?
Gosh.
Yeah, and now, you can put as many as you want on Shopify, which is great. So sometimes in my Etsy listing or in the listing that I make, I'll even put a little note that says, please go to theantiquer.com to see more photos.
Oh.
If it's something that is really, sometimes there's quilts that are so lovely, but they have a bunch of things that I want to show you.
Yeah.
So that there's no surprises, and I'll direct someone back to my website just to make sure they see it all. And then if they have some people have a preference to check out on Etsy, which is fine. But that allows you more there. There's a category option, I guess, home decor, what is your category? To me, I just pretty much always use home decor.
I know. There's some info in there that it's not like, I don't, it says like your sales tax may differ. And it's like, no, it really doesn't
Yeah.
for what we're selling. Now, I
Right.
will, with the cross posting middleman software that I use,
Mm-hmm.
which again, we'll kind of talk more about, but if I make it say a picture in the category, it actually matches that to the Etsy category and pre-fills some of the forms for me. So
Yes.
that part is kind of nice. And I do the same too with you now with descriptions. Yes, I have that blurb. I have in bold, I say size, and I put the size of the item and I put the weight of the item.
Okay.
And that's because, again, how we do shipping might be a little bit different, but because I have to have that information for my Etsy listing, because how I enter the shipping info on Shopify is different than on Etsy. And I
Okay.
need so I have a virtual assistant who she helps me set up listings for Shopify. And she actually knows that when she has a listing that has more than 10 photos, she goes into Canva, and we have Canva templates set up with like collages that can 2, 3, or 4 photos. So she goes in and creates the collages for me so that on Shopify it's 10 photos, so that when it cross posts to Etsy, it's all there.
That's perfect. Yeah. That's
So
something I realized kind of late in the game was that it was cutting off some of them, you
I
know? Like
know,
it would go
I
with the
know.
first 10 and then you're like, well, that didn't show something important. So I always try to make sure my first 10 are a
Yes.
solid set. Like
Yeah.
this is what I need to know about the item. And then
Mm-hmm.
the next 10 are, you know, what I
Extra.
think you might like to know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really important. Yeah, so that's, I think our listings are very similar. Now the SKU that I mentioned earlier, the SKU, so each individual item that I have gets an unique identifier number. And I ran into needing this because like I had a whole set of crock bowls, and I had a whole bunch of different ones that were like the pink and blue band,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very similar. And I was like, so this was one I was like, I had to have the SKU so that when I get an order, I can match. I write it down on a piece of like masking tape and put it on the item, as long as it's not something that will rip, when I
Right.
take it off. And then that way I can match it and make sure I have the right item. Because some of I do list duplicates of things at times. And it's like, I got to make sure that I have the right item going. And like I said, the SKU is also really important for the software that I use, because it's like the linchpin for matching Etsy and Shopify listings.
Yes.
So that's what Sellbrite uses to like connect all of that and update the inventory and everything. So, yeah. And then the shipping. Okay, this was probably the second biggest question I got, because Shopify shipping, I want to create another alliteration with that. Shopify shipping is
Yeah. That's a
difficult. It's
yeah.
difficult. I
I
had
can think
to.
of one.
Okay, I'm trying to really keep it G here.
Right.
But it because again, going back, Shopify is not built for shipping thousands of unique items that all weigh different and they measure differently.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you handle the shipping?
Yes. So I do cover shipping in my shop over $35. So that was because of Etsy. So Etsy has some prioritization. I don't know how much it helps me, but over 35, it's free shipping. They like that if you do that, right?
I don't, and I'm not convinced that's still true. I
Yeah,
don't know. I
I
don't
know.
know.
And that could be, they may have moved
Yeah.
away from that. It's kind of how I've always thought about my pricing, so I've kept it that way. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do get it's tough sometimes when I see that, the Oregon order come in and it's like, ooh, I'm gonna I'm gonna pay a little bit more in shipping for that one than
Yeah.
I had, kind of thought about in my mind. But it's to
Yeah.
me, it's fine, right? It's a sale is a sale. And I'm thankful for it. But it's kind of, to me, I have the meta fields, right? The length, height, width, and I have a standard box that I use almost
Yes.
always so that I can have some standards that I use in those fields, like 12 by 10 by 8. And I know in general, if it's in that box, unless it's like a doorstop or something, it's probably, like about 2.5 pounds with packing. And I'll just kind of use that as a placeholder. I don't get too specific on my weights and everything because I know that I will fluctuate enough over time with all my items that I don't need to lose my mind over the exact, like packed, this is that. Because a lot of times people will also buy multiple items, which then changes, your box size and weight and everything. So in general, I just base it off of about 3 or 4 box sizes. I know approximately how much those weigh. For the customer, generally, if it's under a pound, that's going to help them, right? So if I know it's going to be a set of postcards, I'll make sure to leave that in ounces so that you get the best price. But if I know it's a doorstop and it's going to weigh 4.5 pounds, then I'll adjust just so, we cover shipping that way. It can be really complicated. I would say just for me, that's what's worked. It's having those set sizes. And when I can, I love to reuse packaging, but I really do have like 4 box sizes that I just religiously use. And it's made my process so much easier, more effective and efficient, and, probably saved a lot of time, which, equates to some kind of money, right? So that's what I do. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yes. And so the meta fields, okay, I'll tell you. You told me about the meta fields. I could never get them to work for me.
really?
I wonder if Shopify changed. I'm wondering if it's one of those things like you got grandfathered in and then Shopify changed something on the front. I don't know. I could just never get it. But is that what feeds into Etsy for their shipping dimensions? Like somehow that, okay.
Write that down too, because I'm going to look into that because
I have them.
Really changed.
They're at the bottom of my product page as far as like they're on my listing page, but they don't really show up. So okay, so now this is where it gets interesting because I do things way different. I do things a lot differently. So call out to Renee from Havenberry.
Yes.
Havenberry. Thank you. So she had come on as a guest in a coaching group I was in, and I messaged her. She had mentioned being on Shopify, and I'm like, she mentioned dimensional weight, and I was like, what the heck is that? Because I cannot figure out Shopify. Okay, this is like sellers advanced level type stuff that my brain still can't quite wrap around. This is like a secret. Okay, USPS, FedEx, UPS, everyone. Meta fields are keywords, sort of, but not really. Anyway, I don't really understand what meta fields are. It's just a thing at the bottom. Anyway, let me focus. Everyone uses dimensional weight. What we don't realize is that when we're entering, like say we're on Pirate Ship, that's what I use to ship my orders. You're putting in the dimensions of the box and you're putting in how much it weighs. Pirate Ship takes that information and it calculates the dimensional weight. Okay, the formula is, I wrote it down, length times weight times height of the box divided by 166. So what we don't realize is that when we're putting our information in, that's what UPS is taking that data and they're spitting it into this other calculation. Okay, if let's say if basically if you are shipping in a box that's larger than a cubic foot, and the dimensional weight, the number that comes out of that formula calculation is say 10, but the box only weighs 4 pounds, UPS is going to use 10. Like that's the dimensional weight of the box. That's the shipping weight. And that's what they base their pricing on.
Right.
Okay. So once I figured all this out, okay, I went into Shopify on my back end and set my standard box as 12 by 12 by 12 inches. So now I know that if any item, and I do calculated shipping for everything because I ship the craziest stuff. It's crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I have an item and I know it's going to fit in a box that's a cubic foot or smaller, I just can go with the weight of the item. This is why when I'm listing stuff and I'm taking photos, I write down the dimensions and the weight of the item. And then I've shipped just so much stuff. I just know
Yeah.
once you ship thousands of items, you know how much it's going to weigh packed up. You know how big it's going to be set up. You just know. The beauty. So then if I know an item is going to go in a box that is a different size or larger than a cubic foot, what I do, I'm looking at it right now. I have this piece of paper. Let's see. One of the boxes I use is 15. It's basically 16 by 16 by 16 inches. The dimensional weight of that box is 25. So if I have something that's super big, I don't even have to weigh it. I know it's going to go in that box size. And on Shopify, the thing that's confusing, when you go in to list your products, it doesn't say box and it says shipping weight. It just says shipping weight. It doesn't say box size or anything. It just says shipping weight. That's where you put in your dimensional weight of the box that you have. So if it's a very small item that weighs a pound, you're going to put in a pound or a pound and a half. If it's a huge item like that goes in that 16-inch square box, I'm going to put 25.
Right.
So, okay. I feel like I word vomited on you all, and it's one of those things if you're on.
Did we scare you? That was a lot of numbers.
It's a lot of numbers.
But
this is why this goes on YouTube.
Right.
Someone asked about the replay. It goes on, Lord willing, Lord Jesus, please help us post this on YouTube, okay? Because last month we weren't able to, and it was so the beauty though, guys, once you figure this out, my listing is like, I'm not sitting here when I have an Instagram lifestyle, I'm not putting stuff in a box and wrapping it up. I'm literally just weighing one item. I look at my little cheat sheet and I know how much the dimensional weight is. So when I go to invoice someone or list something, it's just boom, there it is. It saves you so much time. But it is, and I would say 95% of the time it's accurate if I have calculated things correctly. Sometimes it gets tricky if there are, I have a big order with a couple of really big items as far as like, maybe this one item by itself would have been okay, but putting 3 of these big items requires such a much larger box. But the good thing is when you're looking at your numbers and you have a business that is data driven, because one time I got freaked out and I'm like, I just paid $10. Yes, you have to preload inventory into Shopify. Yes. You get freaked out. Oh my gosh, it cost me $10 more to ship this and what the customer paid. All you got to do is run your numbers. How much did I pay in shipping and pirate ship in the past 6 months? How much has Shopify charged? And this is where Shopify is so powerful. I actually pulled data and I said, how much have my customers paid in shipping charges in the past 6 months? And it all evened out. It all was just like, boop, it was fine. You know what, guys? I'm even going to grab my little cheat sheet and I'll hold it up and you can take a screenshot. So now the other option that you've done and that Renee does, and this is all related, so I'm kind of going on a spiel. Renee had decided that she does free shipping across the board. So everything, which is perfectly fine. Yeah. Like it is whatever helps you feel better about your business. And one of the reasons that was shared, I should have probably asked Renee if it was okay for me to share all this. Anyway, I was trying to give her credit. Basically, there was like something called abandoned cart. And so that you can look in Shopify and see, oh, someone put this in their cart. They went to checkout, but they never finished checking out. Because in Shopify, you cannot see how much it's going to cost to ship until you go to checkout. Mm-hmm. Unless you put in an app, and Shopify has tons and tons of apps. And that's what I did. I did a little plugin. So on my product pages, there's a little line that says calculate and see the shipping cost, and you put in your address and it's going to show you how much your shipping cost is right on the product page, just like Etsy does. Mm-hmm. And my abandoned cart rate is extremely low. Yeah. So that's just something, this is something to think about. I'm going to grab that little sheet here. So yeah, it's length, and I'm sorry, it's going to be backwards, but it's length. You guys can take a screenshot. These are actually all my numbers. You can like flip it around, once you take a picture, but length times weight times height divided by 166. Okay. So now do you use Pirate Ship, or how do you buy your labels with Shopify or?
Yeah, so I do a lot of them through just the Shopify labels. So you get a discount. I
Mm-hmm.
think they advertise that it's like 70% less than what you would pay, kind of like Pirate Ship, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it shows you what it would cost and what it actually costs. But yeah, I pretty much do everything right through it. And it's nice because it does integrate really easily for me that way with Etsy. So if someone buys something on Etsy,
Yeah.
shows up in my orders, I ship it through Shopify, it adds the tracking and everything into Etsy. So that works out well. But yeah, most of it's through Shopify labels.
Mm-hmm. So I have done, I just because I started on Pirate Ship, I've always done Pirate Ship. Um, and it does integrate. It's literally like 2 clicks, and it's so easy so that so I go to Pirate Ship and I import from Shopify, which because um all my Etsy orders get pushed into Shopify, so I don't have to like import it twice. It's just my Etsy orders will be on there also.
Yeah.
So then Pirate Ship buys the label and it tells Shopify that I bought the label, and it sends a notification to the customer, and then Shopify will tell Etsy that I shipped the Etsy order. And then I'm not sure how many notifications my Etsy customers get. I'm not mad if they get two, if they get one from my
Yeah.
website.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we all are fine with knowing if our item's coming, right? You're excited to
Well,
see that. So,
and then they might be like, oh, she has a website,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's
That's true.
pop over. Um,
Mhm.
and then, oh, someone asked, I just had a massive brain fart. Oh, the other reason that I like, again, numbers are hard for me, but when it comes to bookkeeping, I like that on bookkeeping because I get afraid of Shopify, and maybe you can tell me this. I want to see all my shipping charges separate because I'm afraid that, let's say I have $100 from a purchase in Shopify and then I buy a label, it's going to deduct $10, but the money that comes to my account, the money, you know what I mean? Like I want to see it all
Mhm.
separate. So how does that look on your end if you're buying Shopify labels? Do you just have to run a report within Shopify itself?
Yeah, you can. I don't generally get to like, I keep it all in another Excel sheet. So my daily routine, I was thinking about that. Bookkeeping, I do it with each sale. So I really don't need to do it, but it's one of those things that I started in the beginning. Like I do think I could pull pretty much everything I need from Shopify, but there's still some of those random like PayPal or Instagram sales that I'll do that I want on there as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I do keep everything and I'll say like what was paid, what I paid for
Yeah.
shipping. But Shopify does have reporting specifically with the labels that you buy from them that you can pull that report.
Yeah. That's what I figured. And I'm using Wave apps. So it's free. They said they were going to start charging in April, but then they've never said anything. They're not charging me. I don't, but it's basically like Quicken and it tracks everything, which is great because Shopify, I think of the Shopify reports as like my gross revenue because I even have my VA enter all my booth tag sales.
Oh, nice.
So literally it's like everything. But then Wave is like my net revenue. So it's after the fees have been taken out and my expenses. I can see like what is Shopify actually putting in my bank account. And I can um and actually I have it split up where I can see Etsy sales, Shopify sales, booth sales, etc.
Yeah.
So that because I think that's important for me to be able to like I need to be able to look at the end of the year like is it worth it for me to keep doing my booth? Am I making enough money? Compare like is my Etsy sales down, etc.
Yeah.
So having someone asked a separate sheet to track your spending. So on Wave apps, again, it's just all connected to my credit cards and bank accounts and everything. So it'll pull over transactions from my credit card, and then I just mark it as inventory sold, and then yeah.
And in the product, like when you're listing a product, it does say cost And so you can put your costs in there. And I have been really good about that in the last year and a half or 2 years now. I wasn't at first, but now the more data you give it, right, of course, the reporting is going to be better. So I put all of my fees in there, and then I can see how much I'm really making.
Yeah, because that's really important. Again, just numbers and being able to make good decisions based on good decisions for your business based on information, and not just like me with that panicky moment about shipping, and it's like, oh my God, I don't know. Like, no, you're fine. Like, you just have to look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, now this was farther down in our outline, but I am going to pop this up because I feel like it relates to a lot of what we're talking about right now, is in cross-posting to other platforms. So tell me how you cross-post to Etsy.
My app is actually the Etsy integration and sync. So it's like, that's the name of it. Etsy integration and sync, and then it says DPL. But I think it's $19 a month.
Okay.
So there is a fee for it, but it's super streamlined. I've had a few problems with it over time, and I have gotten immediate help. So they're very helpful. They'll walk me through everything and get it all sorted out. When that transfers, that's when a SKU is made. So they like make it through that app. I think if I was using a SKU, they would use my SKU.
Okay.
But since I'm not technically putting that in on my side, it auto creates one and puts it into Etsy.
Okay.
If I make changes to it on Shopify, it will update my Etsy listing. Yeah. It also generally goes to drafts for me, and then I can push it as a publish later on. So my Shopify listings go over to Etsy as a draft, and then I publish them. Now, what I like about that is Etsy has fees, obviously, as we all know. I think they're well worth it, but if I know I've been hyping up something and I'm super excited about the product launch, and I have 25 super rare head bases coming and I know my people are going to show up for it, then I'll just do my website and I won't auto publish that onto Etsy.
So sorry, rewind. So I missed this. So you said it. Tell me this again. What is your default? Is your default that as soon as you activate a listing on your website, it gets pushed over as a draft to Etsy? Is that correct?
Yeah. So it just goes to drafts. And if I can sell it on my website, I'm going to make the most for me, right? So I won't have to pay Etsy to be the middleman, because I'm already, I'm already in kind of motion with those customers, and they already know when I'm launching and what I'm doing. I don't really need Etsy to do that for me. So I'll leave it and see. If I sell it on my site right away, then I'll just delete the drafts and I won't publish them. But a lot of times, if it's like day-to-day operational kind of publishing, and I'm not pushing it a lot on my own site, then I'll just go ahead and publish on Etsy, because the fees are obviously less for your own.
Yeah. Because again, it's I actually pulled up the Shopify, because you'd mentioned it's $29 per month, or that's if you pay a year at a time. It's a bit more if you go month to month. And also I do have a link, an affiliate link in the starter kit that gives you your first month for $1. A lot of you have downloaded that starter kit. But then the card rates do start at around, it's the general, like, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents for a credit card swipe. If they choose PayPal, then they pay the PayPal fee, which I think is similar. But you're not paying that extra 6.5% transaction fee that Etsy has. Plus, I don't know about you, but I get a lot of offsite order ads, like offsite ad orders that come through, which is fine.
Right.
But
it takes a big chunk.
yeah.
Yeah.
And someone asked about the name. Guys, I am going to, on our YouTube show notes, I'm going to type all this stuff out for you, but it was Etsy integration into Sync DPL. Now again, this just shows you that there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I use an app called Sellbrite, and this is actually, I think it's a GoDaddy product. Okay, the hard thing about Etsy, because if you guys notice, there's a lot of eBay sellers, they use List Perfectly and Vindu, and there's all these. The problem is that Etsy is really strict with their API. I don't even know what API stands for, but it's basically who they let in on the back end. That sounded, anyway. So you can't just cross post easily like you can to eBay. And so they're real picky and they change things all the time. So no matter what integration service you use, you're going to run into glitches, because anytime Etsy changes their backend coding or their APIs, whatever, then it's going to mess with the other systems that are plugged into it. So that's why we just don't have as many options. The one that I used is called Sellbrite, and how it works, it's not automatic, but I have to go to the Sellbrite website, and then I can select the listings that I want to cross post. I pull it over, I fill in the category and a lot of the information actually on Sellbrite itself, and then I can actively publish. And I actually have, so I have my sister working as a VA for me, and it's great. Thank you. Application programming interface. Yes, the interface, the interfaces, the way they interface.
Interface.
Sounds super, yeah, super fish. So what's beautiful about this is that I can go through and I pull over, I usually wait a week. So I give it about a week for my drops to kind of get fed out to my Instagram crowd and email list. And then I will pull over the listings that I want her to publish in Etsy. And I do right now, because the shipping, I go in and I just put in the shipping info on Sellbrite, and then I tell her, hey, these drafts are ready. You list it. So she will go through and cross post them to Etsy, because occasionally the photo formatting is off. She goes and fills in the color and all the descriptions. I have an extra lengthy addendum that I put at the end of all of my Etsy listings. It says like, more stuff on my website, give my shop a follow, shipping, Etsy doesn't offer UPS rates. So for this giant ice cream bucket, please message me, etc. And that also allows me, generally I have a 10% upcharge for things that I list to Etsy to cover the fees. And also, again, there's certain things I'm like, that's going to sell in an offsite ad. Like Google's going to spit it out and someone's going to buy it. Yep. And so on some things, I do add a little bit more than 10%. But also on my Etsy shop, anyone who favorites or adds to cart gets a 10% coupon. So it brings that price down to my website price. So that's why I feel like it's not, it all kind of evens out. Mm-hmm. But with Sellbrite, it is free. Okay, so then the other thing that Sellbrite does is then if I get an order on Etsy, it feeds it back to Shopify. And then there's sometimes a bit of a delay. If I paid for the extra, like the step up program, it would be instant, but usually within 2 hours, it feeds it back to Shopify. Shopify pulls it off my website. It actually doesn't come off my website. I have special code that's put into the website where it'll show the item is sold out and it takes the price off. Okay. Which I think is really good, because especially on some drops, people need to see like this really sought after item sold out, but the price is gone, because I have a quilt archive where all my sold quilts go, just for the documentation and for people to like learn from and stuff. So anyway, so yeah, so Sellbrite is free. And then I think if I have 20 orders off Etsy or more in a month, it's like $20 a month. I think it's kind of that tiered process. I've only hit that a few times this year I've not hit it at all, because most of my stuff is selling off my website. Mm-hmm. But that's just nice that I'm not having to pay except for high volume times, in which it's perfectly fine. So, right. So those are some options you guys can kind of explore, and we'll have all of that in our show notes. Sellbrite also does cross post to eBay. I used that for a while and I stopped cross. I just wasn't selling very much on eBay, so I stopped. Okay. So now we talked a little bit about like, because the biggest problem with having your own website is people sometimes understand that it's a ton of work to drive traffic to your website. And that's like the number one key for success. And I know that there's a lot of people who feel like they have really small Instagram accounts and they won't be able to drive enough traffic to their website. So you told us a little bit about, you're posting every day in stories, you're sharing photos, you're doing links. How do you get people to go to your website?
I would say, how are you currently selling? I started off doing quite a few Instagram sales and stuff like that, but I would include a little card, kind of like this, and it has like my information, right? So that's a great way to just get the customers who you already have to come back to your site and maybe try to, give some, like you said, like a 10% discount or something. If you come to me at my site, this is what you get, kind of thing. That's been helpful. I do think growing your audience is important in that area, just so you do have more people to reach out to and trying to get to your site. I think through Etsy, the same thing. Like I send everyone my website that gets an order from me, so that way they can come back on there. I have run some ads on Instagram and Facebook and different things to try to build some traction. But I haven't done a lot with like SEO or anything, besides trying to just make my, the names of the product include as much as I can about that product, so that hopefully it comes up in a search. But that's something that, you can certainly do. I do collect, I have like an opt-in website or email list. I have not really used it. I should use it. I don't know what it is about emails. I don't really like them. So I'm like, I need to get this out to people without being annoying. But I would have to say, like, the people I really enjoy, buying from, I do want to see your stuff. So I think that's the key, right? Like, they are opting into it.
Yes.
Sorry, my kids are home. I see you. I have glass doors, and it's not really that helpful sometimes. But I would say, like, that is huge, right? Like, owning, I know how important it is. Yeah. And I think if you can collect that and do it in a great way that makes people want to open that email, like, that's key.
Yeah. So I am definitely similar in that marketing takes a lot of different forms. And I also feel like it's really easy for us to think, oh my gosh, I'm being annoying, I'm nagging people, I don't want to be naggy, I don't want to be too salesy. And it's like, they follow you because they actually want to buy from you.
Right.
And we want to give them the opportunity. And you'll also have to say things more. That we talked about this a lot in the marketing episode that did not get listed, but it's like, I've had drops where I have talked about something 5 days in a row, and it's not until the day after the sale when I post or another, like, hey, here's what's left. Like, oh my gosh, I love this painting. They go and buy it right away. It's like they didn't see any of that.
Right.
They didn't, and it's like you have to keep trying to reach your audience. And I love my email. I think of it as more of like a newsletter, where I am updating people on what's going on in the shop, and trying to make sure that they understand things that are coming up, like, hey, there's this quilt drop coming up, there's this happening, and just it's a great way to connect and kind of nurture that relationship with people. And then Instagram, I've not done Instagram ads before. Well, I think like when they've done the free one, but I just constantly every day trying to post something in stories. And
Yeah.
I have had good luck with website searches. I think the longer your website's around, you kind of build that SEO clout.
Yeah.
I mean, I had this woman who bought a painting from me and she was like, "Where did you get this painting from?" And I told her and she's like, "Yeah, this is by my grandfather." She lived in California. "This is by my grandfather and he was a painter and my other family members have his artwork and I don't have any." And I just like Google searched and
Wow.
and it
That's
popped up.
awesome.
Yeah. And there are ways to get your shop onto the Google shopping results. Too. It's just something you have to kind of set up, but there's that really helps a lot. And then there's also, what else do we write about marketing? I do the same with my Etsy sales. I like put it on my packing slip and I highlight it. Like new items, go to thriftyweenie.com, and my card has my website and everything. So that's one reason I still post to Etsy besides the sales. It's just like, this is a great customer outreach.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge market that you don't want to miss out on.
Yeah. So it's thinking beyond Instagram. And it's like, you can't just use Instagram to get people onto your website. It's just, but also on Instagram, make sure people know that you have a website.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I do think, once you start to have a few things, Linktree is something, right? Or like some kind of that link where it kind of expands and shows everything that you do offer. Is nice. But yeah, consistent, constantly kind of linking back to it. I still have people who reach out and say, "I didn't know you had a website," and it's like, oh,
I know.
I need to do more. So it definitely gets missed. It's so easy to miss something. So keep going.
Yeah. And for my email marketing, I use Flowdesk, which I'm obsessed with. I just love it. And the Flowdesk is actually what has created my link in bio page. So when you click on that Flowdesk, and it has my email subscription right at the top, and then it has some different links towards the bottom, and it's just really clean and pretty looking, and yeah, I really like it. So yeah, and I've had I have a friend who has really, really good luck with Pinterest too, of posting things to Pinterest and driving traffic from that. So I just don't have time to add one more thing to my.
I know. I keep adding. I'm like, I need to get into that, and YouTube and Pinterest and TikTok and all the things, right? And then you're like, okay, now I'm not.
I mean, I would be, and it's really hard for us when we sell one-off items, and I take off except for quilts, I take off my sold items off my website. So it's like, I don't have a ton of evergreen, but I should just like hire someone on Pinterest to go through and like pin all my quilts because I have a lot. So, okay. So talking about Shopify for other sales. So are you using Shopify for collecting payment when you do Instagram sales or in-person markets, or like how else are you using Shopify besides just selling products right on your website?
I have done it with an in-person like flea market kind of thing that I went to, had a booth at. I don't do a lot of Instagram. Like I haven't done Instagram live sales, so I haven't done that. I do a lot of sales in my feed where, a few of us will partner and kind of have a sale at the same time, and I'll just link back to my website. I have found that for me, with the stage of life that I'm in, I need that like ease of everything funneling towards the same place. So
yes,
I started out by like trying to do PayPal and Venmo and collecting all the addresses and everything, and it was just really difficult for me to stay as organized as I needed to stay. So when people tell me, like I'm not ready, or I'm not, like I don't have it pretty enough or whatever, I'm like, just do it for ease, like it's really like the ease of it is what it is. So
that's that's what I tell people. Like, you get back so much of your life.
Yeah.
And I don't do Instagram feed sales or story sales. Well, I mean, I'm always selling for my stories, but I don't do like list something on my feed and like comment claimed or whatever. Because it's all on my website. But the invoicing, so I do have invoicing set up, but do you have an Instagram shop
I do.
like set up? So talk to me a little bit about that.
It is, so I have the Instagram, and I assume it's on Facebook too.
Mm-hmm.
You can access through that. But yeah, it's the Instagram shop. It all goes, like, it all talks to each other, and everything that's on my website is on there. Well, most everything. There's some funny things with like product categories. If you don't have a product category, it might not upload correctly.
Yeah.
I was just talking to someone recently about setting it up, and I can't remember exactly. Do you have one? Do you have
I
the?
do, and it was a nightmare, and I still kind of occasionally get orders off of it, but it's really hard for me to keep it
Right.
up to date.
I'll
And
have to
Meta,
look because
I
mine
mean,
is, I mean, it's pretty streamlined. It just kind of comes in all through the same way. So I don't know. I was trying to see if I could find it here. Um, but it all talks to my Shopify. So
yeah,
everything comes out. They do collect tax on their own because Facebook Meta has their own, you know, their,
Nexus or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
and it collects the tax. So that's nice. But yeah, it's all streamlined through it. I don't think it's an app or anything. It's just through the Commerce Manager on Facebook. So if you go,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have your Facebook profile. You have to go in and go to the business part of it, commerce, and then you can set it all up there. So
Mm-hmm. Meta had to call me. It got all jacked up because I guess because I had a Facebook page that I started at one time and then tried to close down, but it wasn't close. Anyway, it was like someone actually called me to get it set up. Um, it, and now the fees, I think it's like 5%. But the nice thing about Instagram Shop, if you guys have seen, if someone has like product tags, so you can tag your products and then people can shop and check out within Instagram itself. So there are some people who really like that. And I like being able to tag, and I think you used to be able to make it where you could check out, you could send them to your website to check out. And now I think Instagram now has said, no, you have to, if you're using an Instagram shop, they have to check out within Instagram.
yeah,
I will say, I don't feel like it's necessary for having a website and selling and promoting that via Instagram. If you're just like, this is too much.
yeah. No, I think that it's, just as easy to product tag as it is. I guess it takes like 2 seconds longer, right? You have to
Yeah.
grab the link and you can do the link tag instead to your website. So either way, if it's easier to keep it all in Shopify.
Link tag in your stories, right? Not on
Yeah,
the feed
yeah,
posts. Yeah,
right,
because you can't
correct.
do that on.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I have found a lot of luck using mini chat, and that is it's like a chat bot, and it's AI, and some people freak out, but it's absolutely fabulous because I use that to automate everything. I'm like, as I'm doing drop lead ups on my Instagram posts, I'll say, comment, text me, and then they get a DM. They get a DM with a link to join my text messaging list. That's what you guys that are commenting YouTube, you're using mini chat because I'm not sitting here sending those links out to everyone. YouTube, that mini chat is doing that for me. And then when I have new items land, I'm like, comment new stuff, and people will get a link for the page for my website right in their DM. So then it's saved. They're not tapping back through stories to find the link again. And it also increases your engagement on Instagram when you're active in DMs with someone. Instagram is going to notice that, and then they boost your content to that follower, which is great because they're going to see more
right.
of that. So that's also an option. I think there's a free plan or starter plan for that, but yeah, that kind of thing is great. And then do you use the draft on Shopify? Do you use the draft orders option very much for your sales?
I don't really need it too
Mm-hmm.
much. I have used it and it was helpful to draft that up.
Yeah.
But I think my thing is more, I never know what's going to be combined, and sometimes I end up, um, doing double work that way. But
Yeah.
I love that you can draft all of your products for listing too. So that's something I didn't say earlier was
Oh, yeah.
like if you have a launch coming, you can set up the time that it drops and have it all dropped at the same time.
Yep.
If I'm launching something at, like today, I had the teacups at 7 a.m., I can just have it all drop in. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's
I don't draft a lot of orders, but I draft a lot of products.
yeah. And I do, and that's an option that like on Etsy you can't do automatically. You can schedule Instagram posts, but I do that all the time with a draft. So that's what my VA does is she sets up. So like for my quilt drop Friday, she goes because you can allow on the basic plan you can have one other person, one or two people that can have their own logins for your Shopify, and I can like she can't access everything on the back end. She can't access like customer info or anything. She can just go in and manage products and inventory. So she sets up, because I have a format for all my quilts, she basically sets up all the photos, the categories, the drop time, everything, but sets it as a draft. And then I just have to go in and write the description and check everything and then get it scheduled for Friday. So that is also, if you're working on a team, like I know a lot of accounts where it's two people selling stuff, that part is really, really helpful. So the draft orders is sort of like invoicing on PayPal or Square, where you can go in, and I do this all the time with Instagram lives, and it's amazing. And all you need is someone's email address for the invoice. If they're a customer that's already in their database, you can just pull it. You can add custom items. So I have a lot of stuff that is not in my inventory in Shopify. Do not be deceived. There's a lot. It really doesn't go in my inventory unless it's in my booth or on my website. It doesn't get a SKU, unless it's one of those two places. But that way I can go in and create a custom order, like for stuff that people claim on an Instagram live sale. And if they want anything off my website, I can just enter the SKU and it automatically pulls that up also. And you can enter the shipping weight on the custom items and stuff. And that's just really helpful because then you also have, like, I can go in and see, for Jenny, like what has Jenny ordered the past month? If she's ordering stuff from me every week, like, hey, do you want an open box? Just having some of that customer data is really helpful. And you can make it for local pickup or whatnot. My SKUs it's just consecutive numbers. I just go up the scale. I don't even know where I'm at now in the 3000s. So it just, yep. You just choose the next one and keep going. So I think you could probably put letters in. You can do a lot of different ways. But the draft orders are fabulous. That is also how I do my booth sales. So like I mentioned, I have inventory that is set as a location as my antique store. So then at the end of the month, I go pick up my tags, I give it to my VA, and she goes through and creates a draft order, one draft order for everything for the month that sold at the antique booth, and then marks it sold, paid outside of Shopify, and then that archives those products, and then I can see kind of what my Shopify sales or my booth sales were for the month. So I use draft orders all the time. It's great. And also someone had asked about markets and shows. Yeah, they have a POS. How about photo taking? I think we talked, I'm not sure what question you have about photos, but let me know. They have a point of sale system that you can sign up for. And so if you're doing in-person sales also, which is awesome, imagine when you're doing your order, you can just have the tag, the SKU, you can put that in, make an order real quick, collect payment, and then it's you're good to go. So yeah, I think that's it about Shopify other sales. So we have covered this is like, do you have an app or light boxes? Kelsey is the professional photographer. Do you want to answer that question? Well, I'm going to look at the questions from our question box.
I think
and see.
Photography is a tough one because it's really personal to each shop. I feel like it's like your brand.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I do use a big camera. So I actually have it here. It's the Canon. It's very old. I've had it forever, but I have a nice lens, and it's I use Lightroom. So I used to do a lot of photography, and I'm comfortable with that. But I also would say, like, if you're not comfortable with that, if you have a good phone that just takes good photos, which most do now, really good natural day lighting is key. I think I do have box lights, like the stand lights now, because I didn't want to be tied into only doing daytime photos, because sometimes our lives don't allow for that, right? So I do have that. I can tell though when I use that, I don't like my photos as much because I really do love daylight. But if you use that, and then if you have like I love like PicTapGo is a editing software on your phone that's fabulous. So I would look into that. But yeah, I do use a real camera for most of my website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm similar. I did get some studio lights because I have a confession to make. I hate taking photos of quilts. Like, I hate it.
You wouldn't know because you have beautiful quilt photos.
I think it's because I don't have a great spot for it. And I have my wall, and I had to get studio lights because the lighting was, I had someone message me and they're like, hey, is the quilt faded on one side, or is it just the lighting is uneven? I'm like, and we're buying lights like now, because I cannot have people looking at my photos and it's just, quilts are just really hard to photograph because of the amount of space that they require, and thus the amount of light. Like, I have 2 lights plus a window, and I still don't think it's enough. About to put in, like, I mean, it's just, it's really, really hard. And I don't have a space outside. I have no south facing windows in my house. No south facing windows.
I think, you know, if that's the case for you too, like, the lights are great. Like, they are a good investment, and they're not that expensive on, like, you can get on lighting.
And I'm using one right now because I can't use ring lights because I have a tripod with a ring light, and it gives me such a bad headache. I cannot, but this light, I mean, I still don't love it, but you can adjust the brightness and warmth and cool, whatever. I mean, so it has allowed me to, yes, definitely take photos more. And you know what? People still buy stuff. Even my photos, they still buy it. So it's more important to have clear, accurate photos than to have like super cute, moody, filtered, aesthetically pleasing photos. Like, I can't wait for the daylight. So, and I'm similar. I take them all on my phone. It's like an iPhone 11. It's old, and I use the Lightroom mobile app, and I pay for the whatever $50 a year, because I have one preset that I have different presets. I have a preset, editing preset, which is a set of edits and adjustments based on where and when I'm taking the photo, because I'm always taking it in the same place around the same time of day. Just kind of seasonally, there's a big difference between winter light versus summer light. But I go through, and I might have 300 photos to edit, and so I edit the one, adjust the settings, and then I copy and paste those settings to the entire batch of photos, and then I go through and just do my little crops and straightening and adjustment, and that alone saves me hours of time. So it's pretty streamlined. And you know, I have noticed, especially on Etsy, that actually I will do some styled vignettes for like Instagram or my email newsletter, or just like for marketing purposes. But when I'm taking photos of the quilt, get stuff out of the way. I have tried to be super cute and like, I'm going to style all this stuff in the back. No, like, if it gets lost on Etsy, you actually need a very plain background, a very, very, very plain background, simple, white or light. Do not filter your photos. Don't desaturate the heck out of them, because you're going to have some really annoyed customers when they get something and it's not the color that they thought it was. and just get it taken, because that's what will stand out on Etsy, and that's kind of what gets you onto like Google search results, because they want things with it. If you go on Google search and you search for an item, you will see that most of the items that pop up have a very white plain background.
Right.
So, and I actually just got these photo backdrops in. I'm like, can't wait. And so I am talking about plain and stuff, but I did get some backdrops in.
Those are fun.
Like just to add a little bit of texture, you know, for my things. So I'm pretty excited about those. One looks like a door, so that'll be for my staging. But
that'll be fun.
I'm so excited. All right.
I think like, you know, little vignettes in your house too, right? Like if you can set up a little spot that's cute and neutral or good for what you sell, perfect, right?
Yeah. All right. Do you guys have any more questions before we wrap up? Just as a recap, Lord willing, the replay will be saved to Reels, and I will get up on YouTube here pretty quickly, and I'll get that posted and sent out. If you comment YouTube below, you'll get a DM with a link for the replays just to my YouTube channel. We'll put some show notes in with the resources that we talked about today. I do have a free starter kit that is on. You can comment if you've already. This is a funny thing about mini chat. If you've already commented YouTube and then you comment starter kit, mini chat only works once within a live, but you can comment starter kit to get that. And I have a whole bunch of like resources and affiliate links and discount codes and tools that I use, websites and software that I use. Someone asked about glass. I don't know, taking pictures of framed art with glass. I angle
it's always going to be difficult. Yeah, but yeah, the angle is everything. Just like a mirror. It and the lighting, right? Depending on what lighting is currently on it, but definitely try just moving around different angles. We'll get the best picture.
And try not to have direct glare. I have a soft, I don't know what it's called. You know, like it's like I can't reach it right now. The thing you put in your window to make it less.
Yeah, like kind of gauzy almost, like to kind of break the light from being so. I don't know.
I know what you. Yeah, so I do that a lot to just soften. It's like a light softener that it's got like the wire.
A diffuser. Yeah.
Thank you. Diffuser. Yes, light diffuser. I was like, I can't find the word. Yeah, you guys got it. I use that too. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that I did just launch today a new subscriber channel on my Instagram for vintage sellers. So I'm really excited about this. This is something that the pieces finally clicked. I was wanting to just provide more resources and tips and content and stuff for people, but not have my main Instagram account be like all sellers, like I'm selling stuff, you know. So what I've actually found, and first off, I have to apologize. I don't think that this is available to everyone across Instagram, which is really frustrating. And right now there's just not a great other option for me to use. But if you go to my account, I have a reel and it is talking about my subscriber channel. This is different than the broadcast channel, which is free, which is basically where I send all my Instagram content to make sure that you see it, see the posts and the previews and just reminders about things that are coming up for sale. But the subscriber channel is going to be about $5 a month, and I'm going to be posting shipping tutorials a couple times a week. So I have these great overhead videos showing exactly how I package a quilt when I ship it, how I package an ironstone pitcher. I just posted a reel that talked about like my magical phrase that has increased my reviews on Etsy and feedback from my website customers exponentially, and like just tips and tricks that you can use in your business to make it easier and more successful for you. And so you can go on, and like I said, it's $5 a month, and eventually that, you know, as there's more content, like in 6 months or a year, that price may go up, but you get locked in at that rate if you sign up now. If you get an error message, then it may not be available to you quite yet, which is frustrating. So it's just kind of getting it started. And if I find a different option, then we will have it. try to get that set up. But that is the new seller help that I have on my Instagram feed. And the last thing I want to make sure is that everyone knows that you can follow Kelsey if you tap up here. And when do you have your next, I know you just dropped, tell us a little bit about the teacup sets that you dropped today and kind of when we can look for more stuff coming to your website.
Yeah, we did. I partnered with one of my friends, Miss Melinda's Makery, and we did a fundraiser drop. So we both are runners. We're both raising a bunch of money for two different charities. All of the money from the teacup gift sets will go to the charity. So that's exciting. There's a few left if you want any. They're on my website. And then I post daily, so I don't have any big launches coming up, but definitely just check in theantiquer.com. I always have new things, and I'll keep posting in stories too. So.
Awesome. And then I have 5 quilts that are coming to my website Friday. It's different than my normal drop because I'm going to a big outdoor market tomorrow and I needed a little bit more buffer time. So 5 vintage quilts, and yeah, they'll be good. So, and we'll be back next month is our next shop talk will be, our 10th episode. So Nicole and I are going to do an open Q&A. So we'll be collecting questions from you and just kind of talking about anything. It'll be fun. It'll be a very good way to kick off the summer. So yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really enjoyed this like nitty gritty talk.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Bye. Yeah. Okay. Bye everyone.